peaceful afternoon turned into a nightmare when a massive crocodile lunged at a woman near a Florida waterway. 1 second, she was enjoying the quiet. The next, she was trapped in the monster's jaws. What happened next was pure horror. The crocodile yanked her toward the water, its grip tightening as she screamed for help. Would anyone reach her in time? Could she fight back against one of nature's deadliest predators? And the biggest question, how did this even happen? Kayaking through a quiet nature preserve in Florida sounds like the perfect way to spend a peaceful afternoon, until an unexpected visitor decides to crash the trip. On March 3rd, 2025, a woman was paddling through the waters of Tiger Creek Preserve in Polk County when out of nowhere, an alligator lunged at her kayak and bit her on the elbow. Now, Florida is no stranger to gators, but getting attacked while kayaking, that's a nightmare nobody signs up for. The woman, whose name hasn't been released, was seriously injured, and things escalated fast. Emergency services rushed to the scene, and she was airlifted to a nearby hospital in critical condition. But here's where it gets even wilder. She wasn't alone. A man kayaking with her also got bitten, though he was lucky enough to escape with minor injuries. It could have been much worse. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, wasted no time responding. The moment authorities were alerted, they sent in a nuisance alligator trapper to track down the culprit. Now, when an alligator attacks a human, it's automatically classified as a nuisance, meaning it's either relocated or, in most cases, euthanized to prevent further attacks. But finding a single aggressive gator in Florida's vast waterways? That's like trying to find a specific wave in the ocean. If you think this is a one-off freak accident, think again. Florida has a long history of human alligator run-ins. While attacks aren't an everyday occurrence, they're more common than you'd think. Since 1948, over 450 people have been bitten by alligators in the state, and about 30 of those attacks have been fatal. That may not seem like much, but considering how many people swim, kayak, and hike near Florida's gator-infested waters daily, those numbers are chilling. In fact, alligator attacks have a fatality rate of about 4.3%, which is higher than shark attacks. Let that sink in. So, why are alligators attacking more often? Well, humans aren't exactly making things easier. Florida's population is booming, with more people moving into areas that were once strictly alligator territory. More houses near lakes, more people kayaking through marshes. It's a recipe for disaster. And let's not forget that spring is mating season for alligators. That means they're not just more active, they're also more aggressive. A gator that might usually mind its own business could suddenly decide that a kayak looks like a rival intruder. The FWC constantly reminds people that these creatures aren't looking for trouble, but they're also not backing down when their space gets invaded. That's why they've set up a nuisance alligator hotline. Yes, that's a real thing, where people can call in sightings of aggressive gators. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to end up in a real-life horror movie while enjoying a casual day on the water. As for the woman in this latest attack, her condition remains undisclosed, leaving many wondering just how severe her injuries were. One thing's for sure, this is a stark reminder that in Florida, you're never really alone on the water. This chilling encounter is just one of many in Florida's long history of alligator attacks. While rare, these incidents have left a lasting impact on residents and wildlife officials alike. To understand why these encounters happen, and how often, we need to take a closer look at the historical data and trends. Florida and alligators. It's a combination as classic as peanut butter and jelly. Except, in this case, the jelly might be you. It's no secret that alligators are a part of life in the Sunshine State. They lurk in ponds, lakes, canals, even golf courses, silently watching, waiting.
Artwork. Welcome back, everyone. We are now learning more about a gator attack from earlier this month.
Yeah, 2 kayakers were bitten, one sent to the hospital after that reptile chomped down on a woman's elbow. It happened just south of Point Santa in the Tiger Creek Canal. The map shows where that's at in the Polk-Osceola County line. Fox 35's Kelsey Caron's got an exclusive airboat tour of that canal, which locals say is infested with gators.
We see everything from deer, hogs, turkey, gators. Obviously, there's water moccasins back here. There's a little bit of everything that Florida has to offer back here.
Airboat Captain Justin Kelly leads Fox 35 through the now infamous canal. There are so many gators that one of them even managed to interrupt our interview.
I think I see one swimming over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see him over there?
That is a good-sized gator right there.
I don't mean to stop you, but yeah, you're right. You're not kidding. There's so many of them here.
The canal connecting Tiger Lake and Lake Kissimmee in Osceola County. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission confirming to Fox 35 this is the same canal where 2 kayakers were attacked by an 8-foot gator earlier this month.
Most of the time, they keep to themselves. But every once in a while, they remind everyone exactly why they've been around for millions of years. Take what happened to 85-year-old Gloria Surge in Fort Pierce. She was out for a routine walk with her dog near a pond, the kind of peaceful, everyday moment that makes Florida living so appealing. Then, out of nowhere, a 10-foot alligator launched itself at her. 1 second, she was walking. The next, she was being dragged into the water. Witnesses watched in horror, helpless to do anything as the alligator pulled her under. She didn't survive. And the worst part, this wasn't some freak occurrence. It was a tragic reminder of just how close humans and alligators coexist in Florida. Then, just months later, another attack. Dolores Bopple, an 84-year-old woman in North Fort Myers, was walking her dog near a pond when she noticed something moving in the water. Before she could react, a 7-foot 3-inch alligator lunged at her. In a split-second decision, she threw her dog into the air, hoping to keep it from being snatched. But the alligator wasn't leaving empty-handed. It clamped down on her leg, its teeth tearing through skin and muscle. Somehow, whether through sheer willpower or just luck, she managed to get away. She survived. But the scars, both physical and emotional, will stay with her forever. These aren't isolated incidents. Since 1948, Florida has recorded over 450 unprovoked alligator bites, with about 30 turning fatal. And while the chances of being attacked are still low, when it happens, the consequences are often devastating. Unlike shark attacks, which get a lot of media attention but have a relatively low fatality rate, alligator attacks are far deadlier.
FWC confirming Christine Salvador, who is from Texas, was the woman who was bit there. She had to be airlifted to the hospital.
It's a tearing wound, a puncture wound. Looks like the target would get infected pretty quickly. She's going into shock.
The other kayaker, David Morse, from the Panhandle, spared by his life vest. A report detailing the gator sunk his teeth into the life vest, allowing Morse to walk away unharmed.
And would you find it unusual that a kayaker was bit on the elbow?
That gator isn't out here to chase you down.
The canal, a feeding ground of sorts for the gators.
They do tend to pile up back here. There's a lot of fishermen that dump heads and stuff throughout the day, so it's easy eating back here.
Kelly explains to me he really doesn't recommend anyone to kayak in that canal because you're really at eye level with the gators, which he considers their safe haven.
Statistics show that around 4.3% of alligator bites result in death, compared to just 1.5% for sharks. In other words, if an alligator decides you're on the menu, your odds aren't great. So, why is this happening? Why are these prehistoric predators suddenly making headlines again? Well, a few reasons. For one, Florida's booming population means more people are moving into areas that used to be alligator territory. Houses are being built on wetlands, parks are popping up near lakes, and people are spending more time in places where alligators have lived for centuries. And then there's the weather. Warmer temperatures mean more active alligators, especially in the spring and early summer, when mating season turns these reptiles even more aggressive. But here's the thing, most of these attacks could be avoided. Experts say people make the same mistakes over and over again. They walk too close to the water. They ignore warning signs. They let their pets roam near ponds, and perhaps the worst offense of all, some people actually feed alligators. That might seem harmless in the moment, but it teaches these creatures to associate humans with food. And when an alligator loses its fear of people, that's when the real danger begins. So, what can you do? For starters, stay alert. If you're near a body of water in Florida, assume there's an alligator nearby. Keep your pets away from the water, especially during dusk and dawn, when alligators are most active. And whatever you do, don't feed them. If you see an alligator acting aggressively or getting a little too comfortable near people, report it. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has a hotline specifically for nuisance alligators. And trust me, if one's getting too close for comfort, it's better to call than to become a headline. Florida's alligators aren't going anywhere. They were here long before people showed up, and they'll be here long after. But understanding how to coexist with them, that's the key to making sure these terrifying encounters stay rare and that you don't end up as the next tragic story. Despite their fearsome reputation, alligators don't typically seek out humans as prey. But as Florida's population grows and alligator habitats shrink, these encounters are becoming harder to avoid. The key to staying safe? Understanding what drives alligator behavior, when they're most active, what provokes aggression, and how human actions can unintentionally invite danger. Florida and alligators go hand in hand. If there's a body of water, there's a good chance one of these prehistoric reptiles isn't too far away. They've been around for millions of years, long before people ever set foot in the Sunshine State. But as cities expand and more people move into their territory, the chances of crossing paths with them have only increased. Most of the time, alligators want nothing to do with humans. They're naturally reclusive and prefer to slip away unnoticed rather than pick a fight. But every so often, that dynamic shifts, and when it does, things can turn dangerous fast. Alligators have been around for millions of years, surviving ice ages, mass extinctions, and now, modern Florida. They've got a simple way of life: hunt, swim, and bask in the sun. But as Florida's human population skyrockets, the lines between their world and ours keep blurring. More houses, more roads, more people out and about. And with all that expansion, more unexpected run-ins with these ancient reptiles. Now, let's clear something up. Alligators aren't out there plotting against us. In fact, they're naturally shy and tend to avoid humans. If you see one in the wild, it's probably going to slip into the water and disappear rather than come anywhere near you. But there are a few things that can change that, and that's where things start to get risky. First, let's talk about food. The number one mistake people make: feeding them. It might seem harmless, tossing a few scraps into the water, but what actually happens is way more dangerous than you'd think. Alligators are smart. If they start associating humans with food, that fear they normally have, gone. Instead, they start approaching people, expecting a meal. And when a wild predator loses its fear of humans, things can take a deadly turn. Another big factor: the time of year. When it gets warmer, especially during breeding season in late spring and early summer, alligators are more active, more territorial, and sometimes more aggressive. Males in particular get bolder, roaming farther in search of mates. That's when you start hearing about gators showing up in unexpected places, backyards, golf courses, even knocking on people's front doors. Yes, that's happened. And then there are pets. If you're walking your dog near a pond, creek, or any body of water in Florida, you have to be extra careful. To an alligator, a small animal near the edge of the water looks exactly like prey. Even if you don't see a gator, that doesn't mean one isn't lurking just below the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. There have been heartbreaking cases where pet owners turned away for just a second, only to hear a sudden splash, and their dog was gone. Kayakers, swimmers, and even golfers have had close calls too. The key takeaway? Alligators don't go looking for trouble, but if they feel threatened, hungry, or overly comfortable around humans, the situation can turn bad fast. The good news? Most of these encounters are preventable. Keeping a safe distance, never feeding gators, being cautious near water, and knowing when they're most active can go a long way in avoiding danger. The more people understand their behavior, the safer both humans and alligators will be. But as Florida keeps growing and people keep moving closer to their habitats, the question isn't whether we'll keep running into alligators. It's how we handle it when we do. Florida and alligators, two things that go hand in hand. But while these prehistoric reptiles are a fascinating part of the state's ecosystem, let's be honest, nobody wants to come face to face with one in their backyard, or worse, in the water. That's why knowing how to stay safe isn't just a good idea, it's essential. First things first, distance is everything. See an alligator? Stay back, way back. These creatures might look sluggish, but don't be fooled. When they decide to move, they move fast, and in a straight line sprint, they can easily cover short distances before you even have time to react. So, if you spot one lounging by a pond or lurking near a trail, admire it from afar. Getting too close is basically asking for trouble. Now, here's something that should be common sense, but for some reason isn't. Never feed an alligator. Ever. Not even as a joke. The moment an alligator associates people with food, it stops being afraid and starts getting bold. And when a 7-foot reptile with a jaw designed for crushing bones loses its fear of humans, that's a disaster waiting to happen. In fact, a huge number of nuisance alligator cases happen because someone decided to toss them a snack. And let's talk about the danger zone. Water. Florida is covered in lakes, rivers, and marshes, and alligators could be lurking in any of them. While they generally avoid humans, they're ambush predators. That means they don't make a scene when they hunt. They wait, they watch, and when the moment is right, they strike. Avoid swimming in unmonitored waters, especially at dawn and dusk when they're most active. The last thing you want is to find yourself sharing the water with an apex predator. Pet owners, this one's for you. Keep your dogs away from the water's edge. To an alligator, a small dog looks like an easy meal. Every year, there are tragic cases of pets being snatched right off the shore because they were too close. Keeping them on a leash and far from the water is one of the simplest ways to prevent a nightmare scenario. But what if you actually come across an aggressive gator? Call it in. Florida's nuisance alligator hotline, 866-FWC-GATOR, exists for a reason. If an alligator starts approaching people, hanging out in high traffic areas, or acting unusually bold, it needs to be dealt with before something happens. Wildlife officials can handle it, but only if they know about it. At the end of the day, alligators aren't out to get us. They are wild animals, and that means respecting their space, their instincts, and their role in the ecosystem. A little caution goes a long way in keeping both people and alligators safe. Alligators have thrived for millions of years, adapting to every challenge nature throws at them. But as Florida's human population continues to grow, so does the potential for conflict. The reality is, these ancient predators aren't the ones changing. We are. Expanding neighborhoods, increased outdoor recreation, and unfortunately, human carelessness all contribute to the rising number of encounters. While attacks remain rare, they serve as sobering reminders that Florida's waterways are still very much wild. Understanding alligator behavior, respecting their habitat, and taking simple precautions, like keeping a safe distance and never feeding them, can mean the difference between a peaceful day on the water and a life-threatening encounter. For the kayaker in this latest incident, survival came down to quick action and emergency response. But not everyone gets that second chance, As more people call Florida home, the challenge isn't just avoiding alligators, it's learning to coexist with them. Because like it or not, in the Sunshine State, these prehistoric predators aren't going anywhere. So, what do you think? Were the signs always there? Or did this take us all by surprise? And more importantly, where does this all lead next? Let us know in the comments. One thing's for sure, situations like these remind us how quickly things can spiral. Stay aware, stay prepared, and we'll see you in the next one.